Okay, so this is the third lecture of ENA, and we have seen the magic happening up till now, but we don't know why this magic is useful. Why do we do the particular steps that we do in order to solve the sinusoidal steady state circuits? So today we are going to discuss something about that magic, and we will try to bridge the gap. We will start with what we know. So let us take an example. Um, let us consider this circuit. We are familiar with this circuit. It is a RL circuit. However, the source that we are considering here is a sinusoidal source. And since we are talking in general terms, so I have not put a 1 here. It's a Vm. It can be anything. Obviously, it's a real value. And an omega here. We will soon, inshallah, learn that this omega represents the frequency and the radian frequency. And note that we are not basically using UT here. Why? Because we are assuming the circuit is in steady state. With the mention of this steady state, I figure out that this camera is not very steady. I hope it becomes steady. Looks like it has. So the circuit is in steady state. I think this camera moves when I speak. Let me try to steady this. I have turned off the fan and the AC as well. So I hope it becomes more steady and it is not only my speech that moves it, but since it is resting in a long handle, so I think it's very sensitive. Anyway, so let's get back. So we are assuming this circuit is in steady state, means that the transient part is long gone. This source was put into this circuit a long time ago. So now the circuit is in steady state and there is a steady current flowing in the circuit. I will discuss more about this omega in a later lecture, inshallah. For now, we will not be using this UT here, and let us assume this is a real number as well that represents the radian frequency. I hope you remember that this omega, the radian frequency, is related to the frequency cycles per second by this formula, where F is the frequency in hertz or cycles per second or hertz, and this is in radian per second. It is called the radian frequency, where this F basically is equal to the reciprocal of the time period. So if we have a sinusoidal waveform, then this time of one complete cycle is the time period in seconds, and this is the frequency. The reciprocal of the time period is the frequency. The time period tells the time for one cycle. When we take the reciprocal, this tells the number of cycles in 1 second, and this is frequency. So when you multiply this by 2 pi, you get the radian frequency. So we will discuss about this later on. For now, we stick to this. So how do we apply the known circuit laws in this circuit? So if we apply KVL here, we are going to write minus Vm cos of omega t plus R into IT plus L di by dt is equal to 0. Or let us take this to the other side. So we are left with L di by dt, a term with the derivative of current, plus R IT. So I am skipping to write this t. So I is all we know I is a function of time, is equal to Vm cos of omega t. Now this is a first order differential equation, and we have seen this extensively in the last chapters of LCA, and we know how to solve this. But and you know, one of the techniques that we employ in order to solve differential equation is to assume a solution. Now here, if you look at this equation very closely, obviously we can see the nature of I just by observation, that because the forcing function is sinusoidal, in steady state we know, or we can assume, that the current will also be sinusoidal. So this is a sinusoidal term. This side is obviously the sum of both these is a sinusoid as well, which is equal to this. So this is sinusoidal, and we can fairly assume this will be sinusoidal as well. So I is sinusoidal, multiplied by a constant is sinusoidal. If this is sinusoidal, then this is obviously a sinusoid as well, and the sum of sinusoids of the same frequency gives a sinusoid of the same frequency with a different amplitude and a different phase angle. I will talk about this phase angle later on as well. So I hope you are following my arguments, following these arguments and following these steps, and the rationale behind them is very, very important. And that is, as I said last time, understanding of these concepts is what is usually key to answering questions in job interviews. It's very clear that this is a sinusoid. So we are assuming that I is sinusoid as well, and it's not a bad assumption. Why? Because this term will be a sinusoid. This term will be a sinusoid because it's a derivative of a sinusoid. So the sum of two sinusoids becomes a sinusoid. Try to remember all those formulas of trigonometry where cos of A plus cos of B used to be written as cos of A plus B, etc. So we assume I is a sinusoid. So let us assume I is a sinusoid. So look at this argument now. I hope you understand that. After that, I will write what I will be. Right now, I stopped because should we write I as one sinusoid or a sum of sinusoids? So look at this argument. So I is a sinusoid, and this term has the derivative of I. We know if I is a cosine function, then the derivative will be a sine function. And if I is a sine function, the derivative will be a cosine function, right? So And it's very easy to see that if I is proportional to cos of omega t, say the nature of I is cos of omega t, proportional to that, so there can come some constant here, then the derivative will be sine of omega t. So when at t, at some time, say t1, where this term, or where I is 0, the derivative will not be 0. Do you understand this? So because if I is proportional to cos omega t, the derivative of I will be proportional to sine omega t. So for the time t1, where we know that this is 0, cos of omega t at time t1 is 0, we know that. We know that sine omega t would not be 0. And at some time instant where this derivative is 0, at some other time, say t2, where the derivative is 0, this term will not be 0. So at the time where the derivative is 0, this term is not 0, then this term alone must be equal to this thing. So I must be proportional to omega t, right? Is a good assumption. However, sorry, I basically mixed two things. So this assumption was with this one, that when at t is equal to t1, this term is 0, so I is 0, the derivative is not 0. So the derivative must be a cosine function, must be proportional to a cosine function. So if I is 0, this term is 0, this term alone is equal to this thing. And if this term is 0, this term alone must be equal to this term. So combining both of these things, observations, that when this is 0, this term alone represents this thing. So when I is 0, the derivative must be a cosine function. And when this term is 0, the current must be a cosine function. So obviously both of them cannot be true. So let us, therefore, because of this argument, we can generalize this and say, let us say I is a sum of two sinusoids. There is a cos omega t term as well as sine omega t term. So instead of assuming one thing, we have assumed both of the things and taken the sum of that. Remember, the sum of sinusoids of the same frequency is the sum of a sinusoid of the same frequency. This is very the sum of sinusoids of the same frequency is equal to a sinusoid of the same frequency. This is very important trigonometric thing, and I hope you can revise your trigonometry, the identities, trigonometric identities for this. I will use some here, and I hope you will understand this pretty soon. Pause here for a moment. Try to read the book as well. So for example, the book pages 374 and 375 discuss these topics. So if you can't understand from what I am explaining, try to read the book. It may explain you better. Let me try to present this argument once again. We are just focusing on this one equation. We know the nature of this term must be a sinusoid. The nature of this term must be a sinusoid as well, because a sinusoid added to a sinusoid is going to give a sinusoid. That's clear. The second thing is, if this term is a cosine term, this is a sine term. If this term is a sine term, this is a cosine term. So the nature of these two terms is different. A sine and a cosine basically are related to each other but are shifted variants of one another. So this is a cosine, for example. What is a sine? A sine starts like this, goes to peak when the other goes to zero. This comes down to zero when the other peaks in the other direction. So this is a sine. So this one is a cosine, this one is a sine function. So if this is cosine of omega t, this is a sine of omega t. So what is the relation between cosine and sine? So if you remember these two plots, which I think nobody is going to forget, you can very easily see that if we delay, this is the time axis. So if we delay this cosine function by what amount? What is this amount? This is pi by 2. So if we delay cosine by pi by 2, we get sine function. In other words, sine of x, something in general, is equal to cosine of x, cosine delayed, delay with a negative, by pi by 2. Or when you are talking of degrees, a sine x is equal to cos of x minus 90 degrees. And I hope you now remember this trigonometric identity. So you have to revise all those and try to understand what we are uh, writing here. So if this term is a sine, the derivative of sine is a cosine. If this term is a cosine, the derivative is a negative sine. So if, and we know that when cosine peaks, the sine is 0. When the sine peaks, cosine is 0. So when this term, at that instant of time, when this term is 0, this is the term. So at that time, when our I is 0, L di by dt would be equal to Vm cos of omega t. So it means when I is 0, this term represents this term. And conversely said, when this term is 0, this term represents this term. So when this is 0, it means di by dt is cosine. Understand? But when this term is 0, this is cosine. But when this is 0, it looks like I is cosine. So at the same time, I and di by dt cannot both be cosine functions. So that is why we have come up with the sum of these two signs, so that their derivative also includes both cosine and sine. So when this term is 0, we get this term. When this is 0, we get this term. I hope it's clear now. So this is our assumption that let the solution I that we want to find is equal to this thing. So now starting with this, if this is a solution, so assume this is the solution. So if this is the solution of this equation, obviously this has to satisfy this one. So what do we get here? L and the derivative of this thing. So help me write the derivative of I1 cos of omega t. That would be equal to minus omega I1 sine of omega t plus the derivative of this thing plus omega I2 cos of omega t. This term is the derivative of this thing. So we have put it in here plus r into the term as is I1 cos of omega t plus I2 sine of omega t is equal to Vm cos of omega t. Now here we have a side with both sines and cosines, and here is on the other side only cosine. So let us sum the sine terms together and the cosine terms together on each side, and we are going to get minus L I1 omega sine, and with this one plus R I2 with sine omega t plus L omega I2 omega plus R I1, and let us take this to the other side as well. So it will become minus V minus Vm with cos omega t equal to 0. So we have summed the sine terms and then the cosine terms and taken the sine and cosine constants out of those. So look at this one. This thing is the amplitude of a sine wave. This is the amplitude of a cosine wave. And these two sine waves, when added together, when I say a sinusoidal wave, it means either a sine or a cosine. But when I say sine, it means a sine wave, and when I say cosine, a cosine wave. So both these sinusoids, when added together, get 0. So how will they get 0? We know that when at some time when sine is 0, cosine is not. When this is 0, this is not, and when this is 0, this is not. So how can both of them, the sum of these two, become 0? Think for a moment. It's a test of your mathematics. This sine function added to a cosine function is equal to 0 is an equation that we are looking at. And we know at a particular time t, if this is 0, this is not. So if this is 0, this is not. So how can this be 0 then? Right. So this has to be 0. And this has to be 0. For this sine wave to be 0, at any other point in time, both of them cannot be 0. So for the sum to be 0, this must be 0 and this must be 0. So we come up with two equations, minus L I1 omega plus R I2 equal to 0, and L I2 omega plus R I1 minus Vm equal to 0. Now these are two equations. And by solving these two equations, we can find the two unknowns. What are the two unknowns here? I1 and I2, because these are part of the assumed solution. And in fact, finding I1 and I2 is what we are looking at, because we know omega already. So nothing else is unknown. So solving these two equations, we are going to get, I leave this as an exercise to you, just like the book does. And I think it's pretty easy. You can find it for yourself. R I1 can be solved to be equal to R Vm over R square plus omega square L square. And I2 is equal to omega L Vm over R square plus omega square L square. So both the denominators are same. Here it is an R, and here it is omega L. So overall, the I was equal to, IT would be equal to R Vm over R square plus omega square L square. Let me, okay, just confirm, I think I have done that. Cos of omega t, I was saying I1 was is used with cos or sine in the book. So I have confirmed that. I have written the correct thing. Plus omega L Vm over R square plus omega square L square sine of omega t. Now this is that solution. So how does this solution take us any closer to understanding that magic? is still unclear, but this is the first step to understand what are we going to get here. So as an exercise, I mean, this is what you should be doing always. When you learn something, try to use it with what you already know so that it makes a good bond with what you already know. So what we have learned up till now, let us try to apply that. So if R is equal to say 2 ohms and L is equal to say 4 henries, and say this Vm cos of omega t is that same thing, cos of t. So Vm is 1, omega is 1. So it means, let us try to solve that using that magic. So if you remember that magic is going to get that capital I would be equal to the capital V here, that would be 1 divided by the sum 2 plus iota 4. And using a calculator, okay, which I don't have right now, but let me use my calculator that I made on the laptop, and we can solve it to be 1 divided by 2 plus j 4. We get in polar form 0 point. We have already done that, and the angle is minus 63.4 degrees. What we solved was this was 4 ohms and this was 2 Henry. So basically the distance is the same, but the angle is changed now. You can have a look at that. And using the inverse magic, we can write I would be equal to 0.2236 cos of omega t, which is t here, minus 63.4 degree ampere, assuming this was in volt. So how does this apply to this? So let us see. So this thing says I would be, now this thing directly says I would be equal to R, which is 2, Vm, which is 1, R, which is 2, plus omega, which is 1, L, which is 4, cos of omega, which is 1, plus omega, which is 1, L, which is 4, Vm, which is 1 over 2 square, which will be 4 plus 16. That would be 20 sine of omega, which is 1 t. And that would be equal to 2 over 20, which I think would be 0.1 cos of omega t, plus 2 over 20 would be 0.1, but this is 2 into 2, 0.2 sine of omega t. So this solution says I would be equal to this. This solution says I would be equal to this. Did you remember something? Did you understand that this thing is equal to this thing? No? I need you to revise your trigonometric concepts to see how the sum of these two sinusoids can be written as one sinusoid. This was what we had been talking about here. So this is a sinusoid plus a sinusoid is equal to a sinusoid. So we are going to see that thing here, and I hope you remember how to do this. I hope you should be able to figure this out using purely mathematical knowledge of those trigonometric identities, that how an expression like this can be written as this one, or this one can be written as this one. You should be able to do that. The answer is there in the trigonometric identities. that you have studied till now. So I leave this as an exercise to you, just in case someone of you is not able to solve it, uh, although you should give a good try to doing to that. But in case someone is not able to, then you can write a comment on or a post on the Google Classroom, and others can answer. And if somehow none of you is able to understand that, which is very highly unlikely, then I will answer that. Here, let me just recap it once again. We started with an expression for IT as a sum of two sinusoids, but either using the identities or starting with a different assumption that IT is equal to a sinusoid with something like this. The book takes a negative sign here, but I am not taking a negative sign. I am assuming a positive sign here, so the negative sign goes into that theta. So if we assume that this is the solution, then we can do all these steps and then we can come up with the same expression or a different expression of like this. So when you will use the trigonometric identities, as I have told in the previous case, you will obviously reach the same result. So we will get Vm over square root of that denominator term r square plus omega square L square into cos of omega t minus tan inverse omega L over r. So if we take the example that we tried to see with the magic that we have learnt, then for the example, IT would be equal to Vm. Vm was 1. This was 2. That same thing, plus 1 square to 4 square square root cos of 1t minus tan inverse of 1 into 2, 4 over r, which is 2, and we are going to get this 1 over square root of 20 cos of t minus tan inverse of 2. So what is 1 over square root of 20? Let me use the calculator on the laptop, and it is 0.2236. that same thing, cos of t minus, and what is the tan inverse? Where is the tan in this calculator?